The campaigns are over, and voters have made their decisions for the 2022 midterm elections.
The enthusiasm on the ground is real.
The stakes are high.
This is such a critical election. Everything we care about is on the line.
Inflation, abortion rights, and control of Congress. Tonight, the ballots are cast. Results are just minutes away. Voters have spoken. This is a King 5 special presentation.
And moments ago, ballot drop boxes closed around the state. You're looking live right now from the King County Elections headquarters in Renton tonight. The vote counting begins for the midterm elections. Good evening, I'm Joyce Taylor.
I'm Greg Copeland. We will begin getting results within just minutes, and you will see them at the bottom of your screen. Now, throughout the evening, we will be checking in with Madison Wade, who's tracking the balance of power for us in Congress and the closely watched races here in Washington state. As the night unfolds, we will hear from our political analysts who know what it's like to run for public office. Democrat Gary Locke, the former governor of Washington state and King County executive. He served in the Obama administration as ambassador to China and U.S. Commerce Secretary.
And also with us tonight, Republican Rob McKenna, former Washington state attorney general and King County council member. Our thanks to both of you for being with us on this very critical election night.
Pleasure to be with all of you.
Thank you.
So let's start with the latest NBC poll telling us the majority of Americans, 70%, think the country is moving in the wrong direction. What do you make of the huge voter turnout that we are seeing all across the country tonight?
Well, first of all, it's good that people are concerned and they're participating with their vote. There are many hot issues on the ballot, really the control of Congress, but really the values behind each of the candidates and the direction that our country ought to take.
It's easy to understand why voter turnout's so high across the country. When you look at that 70% wrong track result, that is an historically high number of voters thinking the country's on the wrong track. It's combined with an historically high disapproval rating for the incumbent in the White House and an historically low number for consumer confidence. It hit 50 according to the Michigan Consumer Confidence Survey. That's lower than it's ever been since that survey began.
So, Rob, I want to start with you on this question. What are you looking for tonight here in Washington as we start to get the results here in just a few minutes? What are you looking for? What would surprise you?
Well, I'm looking for the early numbers, of course, which will count a substantial number of ballots. As of 2 days ago, 1.5 million ballots have been returned, so we should get a pretty good idea in a lot of races. But I also think we're going to be in for a wait of several days for a number of races, potentially including the U.S. Senate race. So let's see what the early trends look like, but let's prepare to be patient as the other 60% of ballots arrive and get counted.
And Gary, what about you? Looking for anything specific?
Well, we're going to be looking at some of these less popular or less noticed races, whether it's the Secretary of State's office and certainly the state legislature. And again, some of these key races, the U.S. Senate race, the 8th Congressional District, pitting Representative Kim Schreier against Matt Larkin, and some of our local races like King County Prosecutor. Those are going to be interesting to watch. But again, so many of the ballots were only cast either today or within the last day or so. They won't be even tabulated for the next several days. So we may not know the results of some of these elections, at least in our state of Washington, until perhaps the end of the week or even next week.
So, gentlemen, hang with us. Let's talk more about the turnout for this pivotal midterm election. Nationally, more than 45 million people have already cast their ballots up to Election Day.
Right. King 5's Connor Board is live for us at King County Election Headquarters in Renton, where they're counting the votes right now. Connor.
Right now inside the King County Election Headquarters, like you said, they are counting those ballots, and outside there's no one here anymore because the ballot box just closed. There were people right until 8 p.m. there to submit their ballot. If people were in line, they were able to still vote tonight. Now, King County election leaders say they are seeing more people today than in past years who are registering to vote and also submitting their ballots on Election Day. Despite this, elections officials are still expecting a lower voter turnout than the last midterm election in 2018. Right now in King County, voter turnout is at about 45%, but they are expecting the final turnout to be around 71% in King County. This is compared to 76% in 2018. We talked to one man who moved here recently and appreciated being able to register to vote and submit a ballot on Election Day.
I've done the mail-in ballot in the past, which has been obviously convenient, super nice, but in-person option is a good to have as well.
In the last midterm election in 2018, statewide voter turnout was at 71%. Right now, statewide, it's at 46%, but of course that will change as more ballots are counted. Counties have 3 weeks from today to certify their votes. Reporting in Renton, I'm Connor Board.
Connor, thank you. So as we start to get results, Madison Wade has been checking the balance of power in Congress.
And Madison, you are closely also watching the balance of power for the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, tonight that's what we're watching because we're getting results from Arizona. We're also watching Nevada very closely, but just called within the last 20 minutes or so, Ohio, also Idaho for Republicans. So these are the current numbers, 44 for Democrats, 45 for Republicans as they race to take control of the Senate, either one. So we know tonight Republicans have won 14 seats in the Senate. Democrats have won 5. But again, that's changing within the last couple minutes because California just took a seat for the Democrats. Now, within the last 30 minutes, we're also going to be watching closely the Senate because it was split evenly tonight, 50-50. Close contests in Georgia, Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania could prove pivotal. Those have not been called just yet. So we're also watching closely the House, the balance of power for the House, because right now, tonight, 7 seats have been flipped for the Republicans. However, Democrats have flipped 2. So this is currently what our map looks like. This is changing by the minute again. So stay with us right here on Kong as we're going to continue to update you. We know Republicans need to just gain 5 tonight in order to take control of the House. We'll keep you updated as more results come in. And again, I'm refreshing right here, Greg and Joyce, as soon as we can to get the results from Washington State. We'll be able to show you how that looks for our Senate race here in our state.
All right, Madison, we'll be checking with you all night. We want to get back to our analysts. And, you know, I think that for some perspective for both of you, Gary, I want to start with you, Gary Locke. It would be unusual for the House and or the Senate not to flip in a midterm election, correct?
Unusual in the state of Washington for our Democratic incumbents to lose because Washington State, by and large, is a strongly Democratic district. There are pockets of Republican strongholds, eastern Washington and down in the Vancouver area. I don't expect those to change. Obviously, some hotly contested races there, but I think that they will stay in the Republican column. The big race, the big contest is here in the Puget Sound and going into eastern Washington, the 8th Congressional District, featuring incumbent Kim Schreier, who's been in office for just a term or two, versus challenger Matt Larkin. That's going to be a hotly contested race. And again, we will not know the results for several days.
All right. Speaking of the Senate race, I believe we have some of the first numbers in from that Senate race. If we can take the map, let's take a look. This is actually King County reporting. This is the U.S. Senate race between Patty Murray and Tiffany Smiley. As you see in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, this is just with 14% of the vote in from King County. And this is very, very early in the night and early in the returns, but not a surprise that Patty Murray would be leading at this point in King County over Tiffany Smiley, 74 to 26%. Again, the very first numbers that we're getting.
King 5's Natalie Swaby is live for us at Bellevue Weston with Murray supporters and others who are watching tonight's election results. What are you hearing so far?
Well, we are here at the Weston and Bellevue, and the excitement is building. You do have Murray supporters here anxiously awaiting to see more of those results. Let's take a live look inside the room. They just made welcoming remarks here minutes ago, and people here are rooting for Senator Patty Murray to receive a 6th term. Murray says the last few years have been the toughest she can remember. Her message to voters is that it's made her more determined to be a strong voice for workers and families. And she points to the role she played in passing legislation to get kids back in the classroom safely, make COVID vaccines available, and help small businesses through difficult times. Her priorities moving forward include lowering family costs, making housing and college more affordable, and protecting abortion rights. Now, a short time ago, we talked to the chair of the state's Democratic Party, and she's been out there campaigning for Murray. Here's what she had to say.
I think it's really clear as we've traveled around the state, the senator has done so many different campaign events. We've done so many events as Democrats to get out the vote with folks. People know and love Patty Murray. They know that she has their back, and they have her back in this election cycle.
And like I said, the excitement is building. I can start to hear cheers coming from the room to my right. The candidates are going to take the podium here at this watch party. We expect that to happen after 8:50 p.m. And when Senator Murray is on that stage, we'll bring that to you. But for now, live in Bellevue, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
All right, Natalie, thanks so much. So King 5's Julie Calhoun is joining us live from the Hyatt Regency. That's in Bellevue. Tiffany Smiley's supporters are there, other Republicans as well. So, Julie, what are you hearing from that camp? Unfortunately, we just lost that signal. What people are saying. I think we have her back now. Julie, can you hear me?
So here at the GOP party, it's definitely underway. And we talked with Tiffany Smiley earlier today before those polls closed, and she was feeling good about
Right.
We
are having some technical difficulties with Julie. We're going to take a short break, regroup. We'll be right back after this.
Thank you for all that you do for Washington State and King County.
I don't know what's going on.
special election night coverage here on Kong, and we want to show you the latest tally now between Democratic incumbent Kim Schreier and Republican challenger Matt Larkin. This is, of course, the state's 8th congressional district. Republicans hoping to take back this seat after Schreier flipped it 4 years ago. Schreier leading 54% to 46%. 45% of the vote is in for District 8.
King 5's Callie Greenberg is in Bellevue, where Schreier supporters and other Democrats are watching those results come in tonight. Callie?
Yeah, this is the ballroom at the Westin here in Bellevue. This is where Washington Democrats are watching the results, not just for Washington, but across the nation. So we've heard a few cheers from the crowd here as I believe some of the Washington results came up on the big screen here on whatever network they are playing here. But we've seen those initial results for Washington's 8th district. Kim Schreier currently in the lead. This is a competitive seat that Republicans are hoping to flip, and a big reason for that is because Schreier is the only Democrat to hold this seat since it was created back in the 1980s. Now, Schreier calls this district beautifully diverse, and there's reason for that. It covers a vast area, some of the more urban areas, including parts of the Seattle suburbs, as well as Chelan and Kittitas County, parts of those areas. Now, Schreier is a pediatrician, and she says she's the only representative from the Pacific Northwest on the Agriculture Committee, which is where she says she fights for farmers. Her Republican opponent, Matt Larkin, he's a former lawyer for the Bush administration. He's been campaigning here in Washington state on the rise in crime and homelessness. In fact, his campaign slogan this election is "Make crime illegal again." So Schreier, knowing that this district is so diverse, is truly hoping that her centrist stance is what's going to push her into another term in Washington. And when I've spoken to her in the past, she's cited how she's had 14 bills signed into law. And she says 8 of those were signed by President Trump, 6 of them were signed by President Biden. And she's been campaigning there on that centrist approach. She's hopeful that that appealed to voters here in Washington state, especially in this district, as we've been talking about, that is very diverse politically. Live here in Bellevue, Callie Greenberg, King 5 News.
All right, Callie, thank you. We want to get now to King 5's Kristen Goodwillie live in Issaquah, where Schreier's challenger, Matt Larkin, also watching the returns right now. Kristen.
As you can hear, there is a lot of excitement at this GOP watch party in Bellevue at the Hyatt Regency. It has been like this all night. A lot of cheering, excitement, clapping. When those Washington numbers first came in, though, it did get silent. People are intent watching this, but everyone I've talked to is excited and optimistic. They tell me. I spoke with the GOP chairman, Caleb Heimlich, specifically about Matt Larkin's campaign, and he says that he echoes everyone's opinion here in this room, that they are optimistic about how Larkin has run this campaign and the results that will come in tonight. I did reach out to Larkin's campaign to see how are they feeling tonight, and they assured me that he is going to come out and speak on the stage here at the end of the hour. But as far as how he's feeling about this, he is a business owner. He has talked multiple times about his platforms on crime and homelessness. But again, it'll be around 8:45 when we hear his thoughts on how the results are going so far. But for now, live in Bellevue, I'm Kristen Goodwillie at King 5 News.
Okay, Kristen, going to give you a look at the latest numbers in the race between Senator Murray and Republican challenger Tiffany Smiley. Murray was first elected to the seat back in 1992. If reelected, this would be her 6th term in the U.S. Senate. This is Smiley's first time running for Senate. You can see with 45% of the vote in, Smiley has 42%. Patty Murray leading right now with 58% of the vote. We'll keep an eye on those numbers as they change.
Let's take you now to District 3. Tonight, one of the most watched races is Congressional District 3. That is, of course, Southwest Washington, including Vancouver. Democrat Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Republican Joe Kent battling it out for this seat. As you know, this seat was held by Jamie Herrera Butler, the Republican who lost in the primary after voting to impeach Trump. Do we have the numbers from this district? There we go. So we see Gluesenkamp-Perez with 53% of the vote, with about 59% of the vote in, and Kent with 47%. Still a lot of votes to be counted in this race tonight. So that is the latest from the Congressional District number 3 race. Let's look at Secretary of State now.
So Steve Hobbs is looking to hold on to that job. The Democrat is being challenged by nonpartisan candidate Julie Anderson, who has been the Pierce County auditor since 2009. Seen a lot of ads for these two. Yep, you just watch the numbers change there a bit. Again, these all have 45% of the vote in at this point. He has a fairly commanding lead right now with 59% of the vote to her 41.
So we have our political consultants with us, our analysts. We're going to check in with them in just a bit. We have lots of questions. We've been looking at the balance of power in the House and in the Senate. We've also been looking at some of the national races in Pennsylvania, in Georgia, in Nevada. And there's so many interesting things happening across the country on this election.
A lot of different storylines. It depends on what you're interested in. A lot of people are following it nationally just to see that balance of power. But there are also a lot of good stories here statewide in regards to either the U.S. Senate, the congressional seats we talked about with Schreier in particular. But you also have a lot of other local races that we are keeping a close eye on. And we're going to have our election experts break some of those down for you.
More election results coming your way in just a few minutes with expert analysis on both the Republican and Democratic side. We hope you'll stay with us. We're going to take a quick break and we will be back in just a few moments.
right, welcome to King 5 News. We want to welcome our King audience to our 2022 midterm coverage.
We want to get right to local results that could affect the national balance of power. Let's start with the race for U.S. Senate. As you see here, Democrat Patty Murray, 58% of the vote, with Tiffany Smiley having 42%. In the upper right corner, you see 53% of the vote is in. As you know, Patty Murray has held this seat for 30 years, since 1992. If reelected, this would be her 6th term in the U.S. Senate. Her challenger, Republican Tiffany Smiley, is running for the first time in the Senate.
We have team coverage at both candidate camps. Let's begin with Natalie Swaby with Senator Murray in Bellevue. Natalie.
That's right. We're here at the Westin, the watch party, and I can tell you the cheers have been getting louder and louder here as people have watched the results come in. Let's take a live look inside that watch party. And the supporters here want to see Senator Murray receive a 6th term. Murray has said the last few years have been the toughest she can remember. Her most message to voters is that it's made her more determined to be a strong voice for workers and families. Now, earlier tonight, we talked with the chair of the state Democratic Party, who's been out there campaigning with Murray. Just listen to what she had to say.
It's absolutely crucial for Democrats in a variety of different ways. Look, we need the absolute number, but Patty Murray is a leader in the United States Senate. She's the 3rd ranking Democrat in the United States Senate, and she is the negotiator.
Now, it has been a fierce race with both campaigns bringing in big amounts of money, $36 million combined. But right now, the excitement is growing as people are seeing these results. We expect Murray to take the stage here sometime after 8:50 p.m. We'll be watching for that, and we'll bring that to you as soon as it happens. Live in Bellevue, Natalie Swaby, King 5 News.
All right, let's get to King 5's Julie Calhoun covering the Tiffany Smiley camp for us. What are you hearing from there?
Hey, Greg. So, yeah, I mean, obviously these early results showing that Murray's in the lead, but we talked with Tiffany Smiley before the polls closed, and she's feeling good about tonight, coming off of a 15-day bus tour. She says, talking to voters on the ground, that there is real enthusiasm there and that voters are wanting a change here in Washington state. Some of the key things that she's been running on is crime, public safety, and combating inflation. She is here tonight with her entire family. That's who she's going to be watching with as these results continue to roll in. But we also asked her again what she's hearing from voters.
Number one is public safety and crime. You know, even just about a month ago, I met with Democrats and independents in Seattle, in the heart of Seattle. Their number one issue was their safety. They said, we don't even feel safe in our own home. You're the first Republican we're voting for because we believe in you.
And the political newcomer is trying to unseat the 30-year incumbent. And these results right now, Murray is in the lead with 58% of the vote and Smiley with 43%. We are expected to hear from Smiley. She's expected to speak around 9 o'clock tonight. So, of course, we will bring you that and bring you the latest as these results continue to roll in. Back to you guys.
Julie, thank you. We want to take a look now at the 8th Congressional District. That, of course, Kim Schreier and her opponent, Matt Larkin. Kim Schreier leading with 53% of the vote, with 57% of the vote in. This is that seat Republicans are hoping to win back after Schreier flipped it in 2018. Again, 57% of the vote is in the 8th district.
And right now we have special coverage of all the races that matter to Washingtonians on Kong. That's from 8 until 11 o'clock tonight.
After the break, our King 5 audience will join NBC's national coverage on this election night. Washington, Gary Locke, and former Washington Attorney General Rob McKenna. Thanks to both of you for being so patient. First, your reaction to this Senate race between Patty Murray and Tiffany Smiley. Gary, start with you.
Well, I'm sure the Patty Murray folks are very pleased, but again, this is very early in the process. We don't really know where the 54% of the votes that are counted so far, where they're coming from, and what parts of the state. I'm sure Eastern Washington might be a little bit slower to tabulate their votes. King County might be a little bit faster, but that's where most of the votes are. So we really need to know where these votes are coming from. In the end, I think it's going to still tighten up. But obviously, the Patty Murray folks, the Democrats, must be pleased with this impressive showing. But again, Tiffany Smiley has put on a very, very impressive campaign. I think some of the commercials the last few days by really the independent groups made a difference. I thought the commercial about the Republicans who have openly said that if they take control of the Congress, they're looking at changing Social Security. And that, I think, the ad put on by an independent group saying, hey, an elderly lady from Woodinville saying, hey, I've paid my taxes. I'm counting on Social Security. Keep your mitts off of my Social Security. I think that was a very effective ad.
Rob, same question to you. I know you were pretty adamant that you thought Smiley would come out tonight with a victory. Did these numbers concern you?
No, because we know that a lot of the vote is being counted in King County, and we know that a lot less of the vote has come in yet and been counted in Pierce County, for example, or in Chelan County or Kittitas County and so forth. So I think that we're very early, as Gary said, and the other phenomenon we've seen is that for some reason Republican voters are voting later and later. They're being encouraged to vote later and not vote early, and we're seeing that happen across the country, as a matter of fact, but it's happening here in Washington State as well.
We're looking at what we call our heat map. This is how it's breaking out across the state as the votes are coming in as expected. Seattle leaning blue, much of Eastern Washington leaning red to heavily red. I have another question for both of you. I'm going to start with you, Rob. When you look at the closing arguments for both Republicans and Democrats, whether it's Senate or even the House seats, who had the better closing argument in the last couple of weeks? As Gary said, the campaign ads over the last several weeks were very effective. Mm-hmm. Who had the best closing argument, whether it was the inflation in the economy or abortion rights, et cetera?
Well, the best closing argument is the argument that is most effective with voters, and that's going to be determined by what voters are saying is their top concern. And the economy, especially inflation, has consistently been voters' top concern. In fact, nationally, 4 out of the 5 top issues voters care about are issues that they favor Republicans on. At the same time, voter turnout is better than usual among Democratic voters, considering they're in the White House. So I think that their focus on abortion has helped drive that turnout, not surprisingly. So I think that really the best way to answer that question is to see what the vote counts are by county, Republican versus Democrat, and we're not going to know that until next week.
Rob, I have to say the NBC poll released over the weekend said 23% of Democrats were concerned about threats to democracy as their number one concern.
Yeah, that's right. It is a top concern for Democratic voters, and I think it should be a top concern for a lot of us. We haven't seen politics this polarized in our lifetime. It's a bad trend, and we need to see the people who come into office turn that around by restoring confidence in the elections and restoring confidence in our system.
While you said that, in talking with both Senator Murray and Tiffany Smiley a couple weeks ago, Senator Murray said she thought she really hadn't changed much since she was first elected, but that the politics had changed and things were much more divisive now than they used to be. And some people say you see that in the ads. You guys have both run for office. Talk about the political ads of today versus when you were running, and is there any difference?
Well, I think clearly the ads are a lot meaner. They're more divisive. The reality is that the Republicans are going to vote for the Republican candidate, and the Democratic followers are going to vote for the Democratic candidate. And very seldom do you have a Republican crossing to vote for a Democratic candidate or vice versa. Elections are won and lost in the middle among the independents. And I think that while these attack ads do make a difference, in the end, Voters want a reason to vote for someone. It's one thing to say, don't vote for the other person, but why should they vote for you? And I think some of the closing ads can be very, very effective. And I've seen some of those among all the different candidates where the candidate is almost talking to the voter in a very almost like a kitchen table setting. And I think those are very effective. People want a reason why they should vote for a particular candidate, as opposed to just voting against or not voting for the other person.
The late ads are aimed at undecided voters. I don't mean people who haven't decided for whom they're going to vote, because most people who know they're going to vote know who they're going to vote for. I'm talking about people who have not decided whether to vote. So a lot of the ads are aimed at motivating people to cast a ballot they might not otherwise cast, which again is why you see Democratic ads focusing on abortion and abortion rights, Republican ads focusing on crime, on the economy and the price of gas.
We're going to circle back to talk about the integrity of the election and election deniers, which is something that we're seeing across the country, because you're talking about faith in the elections. We want to show some more results first, though, and get your reaction to, I believe, the 8th district. This, of course, is a house that the GOP is hoping, a seat rather, the GOP is hoping to win back. But at this point, with a good portion of the vote, and Schreier's leading with 53% of the vote. Larkin with 47% of the vote, still a lot of votes to be counted. But Rob, first to you, they both ran very fierce campaigns with very different messages.
They did, didn't they? And very sharply contrasting messages, I think, aimed at persuading undecided voters to vote, and for those voters who are persuadable to change their vote. I think they're both targeting independents, as Gary already said. The thing about the numbers we're seeing right now is that they're heavily weighted towards King County. When you look at Pierce County, who's leading there? Larkin is. And he's obviously going to be leading in Kittitas and Chelan County, and far fewer of the votes as a percentage of the total have been counted in Kittitas, Chelan, and Pierce County. So he's still in this, and I'm sure it'll be a few days before we have a clear enough picture to really call a winner there.
Gary, did you want to weigh in there?
Well, that's true, but you also have a large number of votes that were cast in King County that have not also been tabulated. The people were going, lines were at the ballot drop-off boxes today. I dropped off the ballot for my daughter, who just turned 18 and cast her ballot, and so I dropped that off in the ballot box or the drop box today. But there was a long line of people. So yes, a lot of the votes so far in King County, but there are also a lot more votes to be counted in King County, and certainly eastern King County.
Stay with us. We want to look at some more results. Let's look at the Secretary of State race and see how that is shaking out. This is the nonpartisan candidate, Julie Anderson, with 45% of the vote, and Steve Hobbs with 55% of the vote. So this is where the race sits, with 55% of that vote in.
And that looks like it has tightened up a little bit here, and since we've gotten another 10% or so of those votes in. Let's get to King Pastor Mickelson. He's been covering this story since the get-go and has the latest on that. Drew?
Yeah, Greg, as you said, it's tightening up for sure. The latest numbers have current Secretary of State Steve Hobbs, a Democrat, at just over the 50% threshold. Julie Anderson, who is running as a nonpartisan candidate, coming in close to 47%. She has slowly tightened that gap since these initial results have been coming out. We are live here in the Pierce County Elections headquarters. This is her place of employment. She is the Pierce County auditor. She's been here for 12 years, but interestingly enough, tonight she is not in this office because she is running for head of the state's election. So she is at the office next door. We are going to be talking to her here in the next few minutes. We'll be able to turn around some of that interview for you probably shortly after the top of the next hour. But this is a historic race for several reasons. Number one, it's a special election because the last Secretary of State, elected 2 years ago, left. That was Republican Kim Wyman. She left the office to take a job with the Biden administration in election security. Governor Jay Inslee last November appointed Democratic State Senator Steve Hobbs to the position, and his challenger after the primary is Julie Anderson, who is running as a nonpartisan candidate. She says that the parties should not be involved in any of the elections offices, and it's been a nonpartisan position for her here in Pierce County. So as we said, tight race, too close to call. It looks like the numbers may be slowing as far as coming in. So this may be one that we're not able to call tonight. We're going to get some reaction from her, and we'll have that for you later tonight. Live, though, for now, Here in Tacoma, Drew Mickelson, King 5 News.
Yeah, we also have that one big surge of numbers, and then it's the trickle effect after that. Drew, thank you very much.
We are going to take a quick break, and we will be back with more election night results for you from all across the state and our expert analysis from our political analyst, Rob McKenna. Welcome back. Tonight, one of the most watched races is District 3. This is in Southwest Washington. These are the two candidates facing off, Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez and Joe Kent. Of course, he is the one endorsed by former President Trump. His challenger, the Democrat. She's a small business owner. This is her first time running for office. This is the seat that had been held by Republican Jamie Herrera Butler since 2010, and she did not make it through the primary this year after voting to impeach former President Trump. And we have the Democrat, Marie Gluesenkamp Perez, leading with 53% of the vote, at this point with 60% of that vote in.
Let's check in with Madison Wade, who's taking a look behind the numbers in the 3rd Congressional District. Madison?
Yeah, so tonight, Greg and Joyce, I want to just show you again the totals and just reiterate how close of a race this is. Right now, we know about 60% of the votes are in, so these numbers will change, but we want to focus in on some of the historical data here. So let's focus in first on Clark County at the bottom. We're going to talk here and show you the difference that's currently happening, 20,000, a little more than 20,000 votes. But historically speaking, this is a district that actually had 12,000. So it seems as if Perez is gaining a little more ground in that county right now with the current results that we're getting in. Again, 60% of the votes being counted right now. We're expecting those numbers to change. But this is one of the congressional districts that NBC News has not called yet because it is just really so close. There are some congressional districts we're beginning to see NBC News projecting winners. So we'll continue to follow those and update you as we get the results as well from our Secretary of State's website. But currently, these are the numbers, and we'll continue to monitor them and let you know any new results.
Okay, Madison, thank you. I want to go right to our guests, Gary Locke and Rob McKenna. Looking at those numbers right now, and I looked at these beforehand, the primary, Gluesenkamp Perez had 31%. Between Herrera Butler, Joe Kent, and the other, the Republicans had 65% of the vote in the primary. That's not matching up with this. I didn't think it would be this close. What are your thoughts, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's a little surprising that Marie is ahead at this point, but then I stopped and considered that you're probably seeing an overrepresentation of votes from the urban areas of the district in Vancouver, for example. Kent's support is going to come from the rural areas. They're going to be a little slower to return their votes. So I'm guessing he's still going to pull ahead. If he doesn't, as you suggest, it would be a very, very big surprise given the numbers in the primary. At the same time, obviously Republicans were highly motivated to vote in that contested primary. Marie was a new candidate, hadn't gotten as much attention. Democrats might not have been as motivated in the primary, but they're motivated now. And so this is going to be, I think, a closer race than might have been assumed based on primary results.
Gentlemen, before we run out of time and before we lose you to our next show, you mentioned earlier, Rob, that threats to democracy was a concern that you have, that all Americans should have as a Republican or a Democrat. So I'm curious, do you think, not just in Washington, but across the country, with so many election deniers on the ballot, do you think that regardless of how these election numbers turn out, that everyone, Republican or Democrat, should accept the outcome of this election tonight?
Yes, they should. If you lose, you need to admit you lost and that the election is over. If it's an extremely close race, we have a way to deal with that, right? You can recount, you can rehabilitate ballots, you can fight over certain ballots when it's just a handful of votes. But when you have a difference of thousands of votes, you need to step up and admit that you lost and give credit to the winner for winning. Because if you don't do that, you undermine faith in the entire system.
Gary?
Well, first of all, let me just say that the race down in the Clark County area, southwestern Washington, is a bit surprising. Perhaps some of the Jamie Butler supporters didn't want to vote for the Trump candidate and is now voting for the Democrat. But I think it's going to really tighten up. And again, we don't know where these votes are coming from. With respect to election integrity and the threat to democracy, I agree with Rob 100%. When the votes are counted, and you can challenge the votes, you can go at them one at a time, ballot by ballot. But when you have a Republican candidate winning in statewide, and then you have a Democratic candidate winning statewide at the same time, let's say the governor's race is won by the Republican and the Senate race is won by a Democrat, you can't go around saying that the election was rigged. And you have to accept the results.
Exactly right.
And as I'm sure you both would agree, 2020, as the courts bear it out with multiple lawsuits and as the elections bear it out across the nation, it was the most secure election that the nation's ever seen. And our voting system, our election system is secure. So people should have confidence that when they cast their vote, that their vote counts, and everyone should vote so that your voice can be heard.
And if you don't like it, in 2 years, you get to get out there and vote again and try to change the results.
Or if you don't like it, run for office yourself.
Yeah,
bingo.
Try that.
We so appreciate your time. We're not finished with having you on all of our shows across our platforms tonight. If you want more information about the election, text this to us, the word election, 448-4545. We have much more ahead on King 5 tonight.
We're going to take a short break. We'll be back right after this.